As an employee of the state of Georgia, you have the right to know about the chemicals in your workplace. This is guaranteed under the Georgia's Public Employee Hazardous Chemical Protection and Right to Know Act of 1988.
Provisions under the law state that employees must be educated and informed about chemicals that an employee may encounter as part of employment. Employees cannot be fired, disciplined, or discriminated against for exercising their rights under this act. Employees also have the right to file a grievance if they are adversely affected for exercising these rights. This training is intended for all employees and will be part of initial hire training for future employees. If a job requires an employee to use chemicals, they may also be subject to additional training.
Georgia's Right to Know program is directly based off of OSHA's Hazard Communication Standard. To align the Hazard Communication Standard with the United Nations Globally Harmonized System, OSHA revised this standard in March 2012. The Globally Harmonized System, or GHS, uses a two-pronged approach to ensure chemical information is effectively communicated. 1. GHS establishes a unified approach to defining and classifying chemical hazards. And 2. GHS communicates this information through a globally recognized system of labels and safety data sheets.
Under GHS, chemical hazards are evaluated using the same criteria. For example, before the adoption of GHS, what was flammable to one agency was different than another, depending on what criteria was used to define it. Under GHS, flammability has a uniform, global definition.
Chemicals are assigned a category that represents its hazardous nature. The categories range from 1 to 4. Category 1 is the most hazardous, and those in Category 4 are the least hazardous. It is important to note that the GHS category system is the opposite of ranking systems that have already been in place, including the National Fire Protection Association, NFPA, and the Hazardous Materials Information System, HMIS. These systems are still in place. To avoid the confusion between various ranking systems, container labels and data sheets will clearly communicate the hazard identification system.
The GHS uses pictograms to help quickly assess a chemical with its corresponding hazards. A chemical can have more than one associated pictogram.
First, let's talk about the pictograms that represent health hazards. The skull and crossbones symbol represents chemicals with acute toxicity. If you see this pictogram, handle the chemical with extreme care. Remember that a chemical can be absorbed through the skin or by inhalation. The exclamation point symbol also represents toxicity, but is not as severe as the skull and crossbones symbol. This may represent a skin, eye, or throat irritant, among other things. Another health pictogram includes the health hazard. This may represent a carcinogen, mutagen, or a chemical agent that targets a specific organ. The corrosive symbol represents possible skin damage.
And since corrosive chemicals also affect metals, it also represents a physical hazard. There are a few other pictograms that represent physical hazards. The flame represents a chemical that may ignite easily. The flame over a circle represents an oxidizer, or a chemical that may contribute to the rapid burning of a combustible material. The gas cylinder represents a gas under pressure. The exploding bomb represents an explosive or self-reactive material or organic peroxide. And finally, the dead fish and dead tree represents an environmental hazard such as aquatic toxicity.
All of these pictograms can easily be identified by looking at the safety data sheet or doing an image search online.
In addition to pictograms, GHS has added standardized signal words that can be found on labels and product sheets. There are 2 signal words that indicate the severity of the hazard.
Danger for severe hazards,
And warning for less severe hazards.
hazard statements quickly describe risks associated with a chemical. These may include physical, health, or reactive hazards.
Precautionary statements outline measures that help minimize or prevent a chemical's harmful effects. Examples may include storage, use, or handling instructions.
The pictograms, signal words, hazard statements, and the precautionary statements are all communicated on the product's label. This provides a quick assessment of the chemical's hazards and the measures you can use to protect against them.
What used to be known as the Material Safety Data Sheet is now simply known as the Safety Data Sheet, or SDS. In keeping with the global harmonized system, the SDS also has a specific format that includes 16 sections. Let's take a look at a few of the relevant sections.
The name of the product is in Section 1, which includes the emergency contact information and restrictions on use.
The hazard identifications are included in Section 2. This may also include a pictogram or signal word.
Sections 4, 5, and 6 offer emergency information on how to administer first aid and how to respond to a fire or chemical spill. Section 7 outlines chemical handling and storage precautions. It also includes information on chemical compatibility.
Individual protection measures are in Section 8 along with engineering and exposure controls. The remaining sections identify the chemical's physical and chemical properties, disposal consideration, and other information. To summarize, the globally harmonized system was implemented to create a standardized means of classifying chemicals and communicating their hazards and properties. Chemical labels, warnings, and safety data sheets are all included in this initiative. By law, you have the right to know about the chemicals that are used in your workplace. If you have any question about a specific product, please ask your supervisor or contact your Right to Know coordinator.